All right, y'all. What an interesting video that I stumbled across by accident. I don't know. The algorithm knows me too well. It knows what I like. Because whenever I see a video like this, why I'm scared of heaven, which I don't know what angle she's approaching this perspective from. I haven't watched this video. This is a blind reaction. I normally watch the video beforehand, and maybe I should have. Maybe it's a bad idea because I don't know what we're going to get into. But I'm always very curious when you have videos like this. Almost 2 million views, 289,000 likes. I'm trying to figure out, what is everybody agreeing on? I want to know. I'm curious. Also, I thought this comment was very interesting. I'm a Christian. The idea of eternity is so scary. I thought that was very interesting. I'm intrigued. And also, that comment alone has 20,000 likes. So you're telling me this comment has 20,000 likes. So you've got 20,000 Christians, potentially, who are afraid of the idea of heaven. That's very interesting. All right. So let's get into it. Let's see what the heck this woman is even talking about. And let's see if y'all can go over to Twitch and follow me on Twitch and make sure you turn on the post notifications so that you are notified when I go live next. All right. Let's get to it. Without further ado, let's go.
Discretion is advised. Genuinely, if the afterlife or lack thereof is a sensitive topic for you, you can just scroll. Please take care of yourself. Usually there are two different views of heaven that people believe. The first one is that you will be happy eternally worshiping God, singing hymns, bowing down on your knees, etc. Which, first of all, why would a loving God want or need eternal worship? Being stuck with billions of people bowing down a gazillion times forever and ever doesn't sound fun to me. The second view that people have is that heaven has similar settings and objects as Earth does. Like golden roads and gorgeous beaches, and you can do whatever you want forever. But that's the problem. You can do whatever you want forever. Forever is a concept that cannot even be imagined by humans. Imagine the length of the entire time you've been alive. Now multiply that by 1 billion. Now multiply that by 1 trillion. And that is not even a snap compared to eternity. You can read every book ever written an unlimited amount of times. I could paint every painting that could possibly exist. But will you meaningfully enjoy doing any of it? You can do every possible thing ever, trillions and trillions of times, and that won't even be a fraction of forever. A millionth of a second is equivalent to 1,000,000 years. Because in eternity, there is no such thing as time. Alright, next thing. In heaven, and I quote, "There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, nor pain." Let's say your passion on earth was, random example, basketball. What meaning can basketball have if you can't fail at it? If you make the shot every time, it is no longer special. There is no pain or disappointment from missing a shot, so what is the meaning? Also, materialistic things like fancy cars and diamonds would mean absolutely nothing because everybody has an unlimited supply of everything. People are gonna say, but there's no sadness, so it wouldn't bother you. But then is that really me? And that leads me to the next thing. How can you be perfect and happy all the time and still be yourself? Who are you without your sadness? Are your sad memories erased? Your memories are a part of who you are. Some will say you can look back at your sad memories without being sad. If I don't feel sadness looking back at sad memories, that means either my brain has been altered or the memories have been altered. Let's say your whole family makes it to heaven. If everyone is perfect, are there arguments or disappointments? And if not, is that really your family? If I can't have a disagreement with my mom, is she really my mom? If my brother doesn't annoy me sometimes, is he really my brother? In heaven, everything we say or do has to be completely moral and good as to not cause suffering or sin. Everyone would have to have the same opinions on everything. And if everyone's view of paradise is different, how can we all be in the same place? To me, paradise would be hanging out on the beach with my loved one.
Okay. Can we pause for a second? And I say this with I say this as respectfully as I could say it. And I understand that these are concerns that people actually have. I get that because she's expressing it and nearly 300,000 people are agreeing with it. But at the same time, this is a little too easy. This is a little too easy. The explanation. And I'm going to read the Bible to y'all. And I'm going to show you why everything that she said is addressed in the Bible. But still, you're going to have people who don't want to hear it, who don't agree with it. But everything that she's saying is very, it's very much of human concern. It's very much of human concern, especially when you're dealing with God who created everything and understands your concerns more than you even understand your concerns. But anyway, let's just finish the video.
To somebody else, their paradise might be the world being made of ice cream and it never melts and never goes bad. Your view of paradise could be being in your favorite video game or movie. What if your view of paradise is wanting to help others, but nobody needs help? Because it's heaven. Back to the memories thing. Do we remember anything that happened on Earth? Will we remember our friends and family members who didn't make it to heaven? There is no pain and sorrow, so even if I did remember them, I wouldn't be able to miss them or have empathy for them. Let's say a mother goes to heaven and her daughter goes to hell. She either would remember her, but not be able to feel sad about her being in excruciating pain forever in the pits of fiery hell, or the memories of her daughter whom she loved so much would just be erased. What if the only bad thing the daughter ever did was just not go to church? Rules are rules, so she gets forever torture. On to my next point. Whenever I ask a Christian, why does God allow
Not going to church is not a reason that you go to hell. So I'm not, and this is a thing that I constantly see. People tend to equate going to church with being a Christian. Or furthermore, people tend to equate going to church with being saved. Like, there are people who go to church who are not saved. There are people who are in church who are in church but are far from God. Those individuals exist. I'm not telling you not to go to church. I think community is necessary. I think being part of the body in that way is necessary because you need that encouragement. You need to be surrounded by believers to help lift you up, to help encourage you, to help check you, to help lead you towards repentance. All that great stuff. To edify one another. But the primary thing is your faith in Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins by way of the finished work that he completed on the cross by dying on the cross and then defeating death and raising again. Your faith has to be in that. You have to receive the free gift of salvation by way of your faith in order to be saved. But let's continue.
So much evil? They always say because God allows us the gift of free will, and without free will, we would just be robots. And there is no good without evil. Wait a minute, but in heaven there's no evil, right? There's no sin or sadness, and everyone is good and pure. Let me get this straight. You say that evil exists because we have free will. If we didn't have free will, we would all be robots. And also, heaven has no evil. Here on Earth, we're all sinners and nobody's perfect. But if we are made to be perfect in heaven, then wouldn't we all be exactly the same? Robots. How would our appearances change to be perfect? What does that look like? Would I just be a soul with no thoughts of my own made to be artificially happy forever? Your soul will only feel happy about it, so you won't even care. I can't.
Here's the thing. You would be as God intended, not corrupt with sin, not corrupted by the flesh. That's how you would be. Our perspectives are already misled because we're operating out of a perspective of sin. We've normalized sin. We think sin is normal. It's not normal. In fact, God literally came to earth and put on flesh to die in order to defeat sin. Sin is not normal, but we've normalized it to the point that we start to associate with it and build relationships with it. And now we're fearful of parting with our sin for all of eternity.
Here now. And who am I without sin? If I wanted to eat an entire...
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. And I didn't even know she was going to say that. I didn't even know she was going to say that. Who am I without sin? You're the way that God created you. You were made in the image of God. Sin is not normal. Sin is not good. Sin is not something that you should be coming into agreement with. You should be fleeing from it. You should be actively warring against it. But if you don't have that perspective, then of course, the idea of heaven is going to be off-putting to you. And just like you said, you don't have to put your faith in Jesus Christ. Just like you said, you have free will. You can turn away from God and do whatever you want to do. And if you would prefer to be in the presence of sin for all of eternity, there's a place for that. But it's one or the other. You're not going to live in this in-between state where you're not in hell, you're not in heaven, but you can still divulge in your sin, but you can still not have to pay any consequences for that sin that you want to divulge in. It's like, what are we asking for?
Higher pint of ice cream, wouldn't that be gluttony? Am I allowed to do that in heaven? Can you sin in heaven? Can I litter in heaven? Would littering still be a sin even if it didn't cause any harm? Would the receipt I threw just poof away? In heaven, you won't even want to sin. So the desire I have right now on earth to eat a pint of ice cream will be restricted somehow in heaven? Would my thoughts of sin be repressed? If some thoughts are repressed and some thoughts are given, then how do I know if any of my thoughts are my own? Am I allowed to opt out? Am I allowed to leave? Am I allowed to ask questions? Or would my mind somehow be altered to just accept everything and be happy about it? Before y'all try to be smart in the comments, obviously heaven is better than hell. But does that mean it's good? What's wrong with just going to where I was before I was born? I would rather just cease to exist than go to either of those places. Sure.
You would rather cease to exist than go to heaven. Do you hear yourself? You would rather cease to exist than go to heaven? Do you hear what you're actually saying? Or are words just coming out of your mouth? I'm trying to be nice, but I just don't understand how people can say these things and then not like understand fully what they're actually asking for.
Before you were born, there were no joyous experiences, but there was also no death, sorrow, crying, or pain, or pressure to be perfect. There is just nothing, and that is what makes life meaningful. And
do you know before you were born that God knew you because he formed you in your mother's womb? Even though you most likely strike me as the individual who doesn't want to accept that, but it is what it is. So before you were born, you were in fact in a relationship with God because he knew you. He knew you. So why are we so rebellious towards the person who literally created us? Literally created us and gave us options to make a decision as to whether or not we wanted to love him or not. You didn't have to. You don't have to love God. You don't have to be in a relationship with him. You don't have to put your faith in Jesus Christ. You don't have to. But being upset at the fact that he gave you that option to choose, well, you would have been upset either way then, it seems like. You know what I mean? Like going back to the robot analogy, you would have been upset with that because you didn't have a choice. But then on the flip side, you're upset that you do have a choice. It ain't making sense.
the requirements to get into heaven also make no sense, and I can talk about that for hours. But yeah, does anyone relate
What are the requirements to get into heaven?
to my feelings or have any of these same questions? Because I haven't really seen this talked about much. If you're interested about hearing more about this topic, this video goes really into depth and explains everything much better than I can. Thanks for letting me yap. See you next time.
Okay. Okay. Also, I think it's interesting. Somebody said, if heaven is so good, why did Lucifer rebel? 8,000 likes. It's because he wanted to be worshiped like God. That's why. He wanted to be worshiped like God. He wanted what God was receiving. That's why he rebelled. And I also think if you really take time to kind of think about that, if it wasn't so good, would Lucifer have wanted to be worshiped in the same way that God is worshiped? Would he want to receive that and be in that position if it wasn't so good? You understand what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be like heretical or anything like that, but you see what I'm saying, right? Okay, let's have some conversations. I specifically want to talk to the Christians, and the reason why I want to talk to the Christians is because 20,000 Christians said that the idea of eternity is so scary. So 20,000 Christians believe that the idea of eternity is so scary. I want to speak to y'all. Because that's actually very concerning to me. Revelation 21. And I think she was attempting to include this in her video. But Revelation 21. I want to read this part right here. I think it is. Yeah, I guess I can start here from the top. Revelation 21, verse 1. The new heaven and the new earth. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them as their God, and he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore. For the former things have passed away. The former things have passed away. There's a lot of parts that I want to talk about, but that's a very important point. We are so attached, and we have built this association with the former things that we have normalized as human beings, that we have somehow started to believe that the former things are actually good for us and that they're supposed to be present in our lives. But that is not the case. Sin is not supposed to be present in our lives. That is the very reason why God died for sin in the first place, to eliminate it, to defeat it, to defeat death. Because the wages of sin is death. So if you advocate for sin, if you enjoy sin, if you are making excuses for sin, then you are essentially saying that you want to receive the wages of sin, which is death. It says he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Can you imagine just for a second? And there's a couple different reasons that I can think of, why people cry. Yes, of course, people cry for reasons that can be explained as like happy tears or like tears of joy, right? I'm assuming that this verse is not necessarily talking about that. Just based on the context, I'm assuming that this is talking about the painful reasons, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is, the painful reasons that would cause somebody to cry, right? That's what I assume that this verse is talking about. It says he will wipe away every tear. So every reason that you would have to cry, from the standpoint of expressing the pain that you feel physically, emotionally, like psychologically, like whatever it is, any one of those reasons, God is going to wipe that away. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but when I read that verse, I'm reminded of a similar verse that says that God will give us a peace that surpasses all understanding. Because there are some people, and I don't know what, as I said, I don't know what that looks like, but there are some people, exactly like what she was saying, there are some people who believe that it's going to be like a Men in Black type of like, choo, and just wipe off your entire memory. You don't remember anything. And suddenly you're just an empty blank slate and you're just worshiping on your hands and knees all day long, just worshiping, praising. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of praise and worship in heaven because you are literally with God. That's what it says. The dwelling place of God is with man. Can you imagine that? You will have no really option but to worship him because you recognize how holy he is. So there is going to be a lot of praise and worship in heaven. And I don't think we're going to get tired of that. But I also don't think that's the only thing that we're going to be doing. But then at the same time, when I think about it, I think everything that we do in heaven is going to be an expression of our praise and worship to God. But I don't necessarily think that that's going to look like how a lot of us think that that's going to look like the majority of the time. Or I don't know. I'm really just talking. I'm really just speculating. I don't know. But those of you who understand what I'm saying, you understand what I'm saying. Here's the thing. People think like, oh, we're going to be so bored in heaven. What are we going to do in heaven? There's going to be no excitement. There's going to be no fun. It's going to get boring just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Do you understand that there is a large amount of people who eliminate themselves from this life? They take it upon themselves to eliminate themselves from this life. You know what I'm talking about. There a lot of people do that. Do you think they're escaping from joy? Do you think they're escaping from peace? Do you think they're escaping from this satisfaction and this happiness and this sense of feeling accepted and loved and belonging? Do you think they're escaping from those things? Or do you think they're trying to escape to those things? Because if they had joy everlasting, if they had peace everlasting, if they had love everlasting, if they had fulfillment everlasting, if they had calling and direction everlasting, if they had that in this life, do you think they would be trying to flee from it and get away from it? Or do you think that they would be trying to do everything humanly possible to stay in that place for as long as they could? When it says death will be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed. So if there's no death, if there's no mourning, if there's no crying, if there's no pain, then as I said, that would imply that we're going to have everlasting joy. That is new joy, everlasting, new peace, everlasting. It doesn't run out and it's new. We're experiencing it new in so many different ways. The love is existent and present in a way that we experience it like we've never even felt before in our lives. And it's hard to even articulate with words what that experience is going to be like. But I could tell you one thing for sure. I do not believe that it is going to be an experience that you're going to want to leave. You cannot convince me of that. I do not believe that it's going to be an experience that is going to get boring or played out or old. You cannot convince me of that. Because all of the good things that we experience here on this earth, all the positive emotions that we are chasing, that we want more of, you know, God is the author of that, right? He's the author of that. But what we've done is we have found artificial ways to try to access those feelings, those positive emotions. We have manufactured for ourselves and our own human abilities artificial ways to try to get the happiness and get the joy and get the peace by way of drinking, by way of drugs, by way of lust, by way of sin. But God says, and he's saying to you that he wants to give you the real thing. He wants to give it to you from the source. And it never runs out. The well will never run dry. So all these other concerns that you have, although, and here's the part that people do not like, although I do not have all the answers for you right now, I'm just a human. And I'm a flawed human at that. I don't have all the answers. But I'll tell you, just because you don't know all of the details of what that's going to look like in eternity, that doesn't mean at some point that you won't know. Because at some point you will know. You will know. And I pray that you know from the perspective of being with God and not apart from him. All right. So let me know what y'all think. Get in my comments, like this video. I'm out, y'all.